So I'd like to welcome Niranjan Venkatesh, Melvin Xavier, and Pablo Barcena to the speaker. So maybe we can start again. Niranjan, if you want to give us a quick introduction to yourself.
My name is Niranjan. I am the CEO of Cargo Line Freight and Logistics. My journey started as a salesperson selling freight. When I started off, I was neither selling price nor was I selling capacity. I was pretty much selling myself. And my employer was great, but that was the nature of the industry in forwarding. There were so many players already, and then the whole idea was just to get people to trust that moving a shipment with Niranjan was still safer than perhaps another salesperson. So that's how my journey started. Fast forward now, we found a calling within the luxury fashion world. I'm really passionate about catering to very niche aspects of the luxury fashion industry. And today at Cargo Line, our focus is quite largely catering to global brands, fully recognizing we're not on 5 continents, but we are in this neighborhood and we are in and around GCC. So a building block at Cargo Line, hopefully building a future that's going to be relevant 10 years down the line as well.
Great. And Melvin, the same for you, just a little introduction to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Morning, my name is Melvin Xavier. I am one of the directors at RW Solutions. We are a freight networking organization with over 2,500 members across 11 networks. I am here today representing X2 Logistics Network, and that's a company that we acquired in November. I also am the founder and director at Cold Chain Connect, which is a freight network connecting forwarders that specializes in perishables and food logistics, and Emerge, which is a freight alliance for Africa. Besides the freight networking world, I'm also a forwarder at heart. I've been 22 years in the industry, helping my father in his family freight business. We have an office in Kuwait, in Dubai, in Cochin, in Malaysia. The company is called Golden Cargo Services. In a nutshell, I'm passionate about freight and the people behind it, and then we can talk more as we go along, I guess.
Great, thank you. Pablo, yourself, can you give us a brief introduction, please?
Sure, Ryan. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I am Pablo Barcena, Spanish, in the Middle East and Dubai since the last 14 years. I am actually at this moment global procurement manager for logistics, capital expenses, and packaging for Enerpacto Group. Enerpacto Group is a century-old company that actually grew out of the name Actuant, that you may know or not. Actually, our main activity is the manufacturing and distribution of hydraulic power tools. We are in the old steel, let's say, industrial goods business, as opposed to fast-moving consumer goods. You know, I call it all steel, slow-moving industrial goods, right? So, because most of my career has been in FMCG. So yeah, I look after logistics globally and also CapEx with various projects. I look after sea freight, air freight, parcel, road trucking. I also am involved currently actually in a warehouse modification project in Wisconsin, where is our manufacturing warehouse in the US. Our company is a worldwide player. We do have a big manufacturing footprint with factories in, as I just said, Wisconsin in the Midwest with 2 locations. Shanghai, China, Newcastle, UK. We do have also 1 location for manufacturing in Holland and 1 for warehousing. As a matter of fact, our central warehouse for Western Europe is in Holland, and we do have another factory in Spain. So my reach is global. I don't have a business card because I don't meet anybody in Dubai, so I apologize in advance. I work globally on my projects. I try to, let's say, give a touch of strategic procurement to the logistics function of my company, and well, I'm happy to be here and to share my experiences and views on the subject.
Great. So, Melvin, if we can start with you, can you talk about some of the key changes you've seen in the freight forwarding industry over the years and how that's contributed to your outlook now on it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would want to say technology, but the previous panelists went on about technology and everything to do with that. So I will focus more maybe on the relationship side of things. think when I first entered the freight industry 22 years ago, relationships played a much larger role than it did today. I recollect first walking into the office, and we had, from our Dubai office, we had a partnership agreement with a company in Germany called Senator. And that was something that my father was extremely proud of, and the relationship was set in stone. We had an agreement to do all work that we generated with them, and we expected them to do the same with us. And that was very exclusive in nature, and something that we would not expect them to work with anyone else, and likewise for us. However, fast forward to today, and our office has a separate agent in Germany for air freight, another one for maybe perishables, and a third one for pharma, another one for full containers, and maybe a fifth for LTL consolidation. So I think the trend of exclusive partnerships is now changing, and it's unfortunately our business is becoming more commoditized, and we're looking at relationships more to serve one particular need. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something, a change that I've observed, and that's why also a freight network like X2 that I'm part of plays a massive role, where we connect forwarders globally and give them the right connections in their vertical that they're strong with. So if they are looking for somebody in projects, then we want to make sure that we're working with an expert that it belongs to that space. So I could go on about other changes, but I think that's the one that I want to focus on today.
Okay, great. Niranjan, if I can bring it over to you now, can you share some of your thoughts on innovation and how it has changed the game for freight forwarding industry over the last couple of years?
Okay. Innovation, how do I put it? There's a lot of tools that are available for freight forwarders to innovate. We've got one in our audience who's trying to automate how trucking and how B2B connections with the trucking world, takes place. What I have seen in the recent past is the size of teams for an effective freight forwarder has actually shrunk. I don't think we need to be, in every country to be able to move shipments globally. We've got Pablo here. He says you don't have a business card, but you're controlling operations in Wisconsin, close to where I studied. It's cold as hell there. And you're able to control, you're able to execute on projects, right? And that's the same for us. Technology has been a major enabler. People like Melvin have actually brought the freight forwarding world a little closer to each other, because networking groups like this throw parties, and at the end of the 4-day event, where we also do a lot of business, we do one-on-one meetings, you end up knowing people on first-name basis in different countries. So the growth of Cargoline in the past 6 years, we work with publicly listed, globally recognized fashion brands. 10 years back, if somebody told me, Niranjan, this is what you should or you could do, you had your DHLs of the world catering to them. It wasn't even a possibility. Fast forward today, the way we leverage technology and innovations within Cargoline is such that we dig ourselves into the ecosystem of the clients. So for example, we've got an app that runs on the phone of every, let's say, a large brand's operation staff in Dubai Mall and Mall of the Emirates, and they send out pickup requests. And I did not need an IT team for this. There are low-code and no-code applications which we leverage to create. So technology is the enabler when it comes to innovation, and applicability of technology with a deep-rooted understanding of what are the challenges within your industry. I think that's the ingredient.
Great. Pablo, over to you then. How do you see the role of strategic procurement in the logistics sector, and more specifically in freight forwarding?
First of all, may I just answer to the question?
Of course, yeah.
Because a couple of ideas came to my mind. And actually, look, as we said, now my role is very abstract for me. My company doesn't exist in a room. There's no faces, there's no materials, I know where everything is. But the same goes for someone from the C-suite, right? You have the CMO, or you have the President of Business Americas, the President of Business, the APAC President, and one day they need to know a lead time. They need to know, oh, how long does it take to get a pallet of goods from Wisconsin to Perth? And they don't know. They don't have an app in their hand, but I do, because I've seen in the freight forwarding industry, the change is coming slowly, because somehow these massive companies like Schenker, DHL, Expeditors, they have a big amount of data, but they actually have to invest a lot, make an investment on IT systems to give data back to the customers. There's a couple of real good benchmarks. For instance, this American company, C.H. Robinson, has this amazing dashboard where I can just click and I know exactly what's the historical lead time, precisely from Wisconsin at the gate to Perth at my gate, and I know it's exactly 104 days, and it has improved by 12 days in the last 2 months. And this information, I can share it with a business executive that has a customer right in front of him say, hey, well, when is the shipment going to arrive to my mines? Because in Australia, we work in the ore mines in the Northwest. And he's gonna say, oh, 104 days to Perth, plus 7 days with the truck. So that's gonna be 111 days. Will you wait for our tool? I say, yeah, because it's enterprise, because we are number one, right? We are the leading brand in the market. But he can always say, oh, 111 days? Well, I buy something from the local market, from the Chinese distributor that has stock of these hydraulic cylinders. So data, actually, and the way you can share it with people that need it on the go to take a decision to sell the product, right? It's what's been evolving in the global forwarding, the accessibility to data. Operations, like the way they handle our cargo, the way things are flowing, it's still very disconnected. Let's say in terms of not transparent to you what they do, and sometimes what you're looking at in terms of innovation is like, give me full traceability. Like, tell me exactly where the container or the pallet or the package is today. Now, I want to know, because I want to know when it arrives, when it hits my warehouse. Because when it hits my warehouse, then I can release the other order because I have more space. You want to know what is the cost of every kilogram that you ship around the world. So that's the ideas that were flowing through my mind when you were asking that question. Now, back to the question. Sorry.
Yes, the role of strategic procurement in the freight forwarding industry. How do you see it evolving in the coming years?
Yeah, let's say my first contact with freight and logistics was Dubai to Cairo containers. There was one price, one product, 20-footer or 40-footer, I don't remember well. And it's quite simple, right? The guys in logistics were told by the CEO, now procurement is handling the prices. Like, okay, so logistics prices are a simple thing. Pick the phone, say from A to B, it's a parcel, it's a pallet, or it's a full container, right? That's what procurement was looked at the beginning of the, let's say, the evolution of procurement into logistics. What I see now is procurement is becoming more of a business partner. And yes, our focus is on cost, on keeping our management informed of the trends of cost, on forecasting what's going to happen, but we also have to become that partner that kind of looks for alternative solutions, right? That can create a process improvement into our logistics. For instance, how to qualify a company that is modifying your warehouse, giving you better control of your packages, right? This is what we do. We do qualification and selection of suppliers. Then we also do propose and do manage the integration of, they call it TMS, Transport Management Systems. So these TMSs, they take data from your backbone ERPs such as SAP or Oracle, and then they transform that data into valuable information that enables you to manage your logistics slash supply chain, etc. So that's where the value is coming. And I think that the top layer where procurement has to be there is on the day-to-day data. Let's say I have to know what's going to happen next month with the prices of containers from Shanghai to Los Angeles, because that's my main cost. I have to know what are the trends of trucking in Europe. Are the driver's salaries going to go up? Is the fuel going to be reduced in the next few months? How long is the Red Sea crisis, which actually is adding us 2 weeks of lead time from China to Netherlands, going to last? What are the alternative solutions to shipping from Wisconsin to Australia by container? Do we ship by plane to Singapore, and then we transfer it to a container to another, mixed mode of transportation, etc. So these kind of having these solutions ready doesn't mean the solutions have been implemented, because logistics is a very old-fashioned business where people always doing the same and they think they have achieved already the optimum. It's usually the case. But being ready to say, hey, I need an expedite shipment because I am missing this sale. I told the customer on Monday. Then you pick the phone and say, hey, this is the air freight rate, and I have it ready for you. So this is where it is. It's the business partner status that personally I want procurement within logistics in my organization to reach, where they come to you and say, hey, Pablo, what's the solution? Business partner. I think that's the future of procurement in logistics.
Coming back to that idea of globalization, Melvin, can you talk a little bit about what small to medium-sized companies can contribute to a global freight forwarding industry?
Right, sure. Now, before I come to that, he mentioned about the role of procurement, and I see how procurement officers and managers are demanding more and more information from players like us. He wanted to know when would the Red Sea crisis end. He wants to know what would be the price of a container from Shanghai to Dubai next month. I think as freight forwarders, if we had this information, we'd be billionaires. I mean, the truth is that's something that we probably still cannot solve. We still don't have that information as it stands today. But the point he's trying to make is the procurement managers and logistics professionals globally are demanding more and more access to information. They want visibility, and they want to be a part of the mix. So small, medium-sized forwarders, to answer your question, like us, and now I'm going to wear the hat of a freight forwarder and not a network and say, it's time for us to innovate. Unfortunately, in Dubai specifically, small, medium-sized forwarders are quite comfortable where they are, and they are less likely to invest in systems. I think the freight forwarding industry is probably amongst the last ones to catch up with technology. The retail space, even supply chain professionals, 3PL operators, they've all invested in systems and automation and technology. Unfortunately, freight forwarders are still playing catch up. And why is that? Freight forwarders faced a massive boom in the Middle East in the late 90s and early 2000s. And some of these expat entrepreneurs that came to the Middle East made a fortune overnight. Yeah, and now they're all looking at retirement options. And this next generation that's coming in, people like us, are having to constantly fight with our predecessors to find solutions to invest in what the clients are looking for today. So it's going to be an interesting phase for small, medium-sized forwarders in Dubai. I'm upbeat that the second generation can eventually win over their predecessors, and that change is coming. Although we were late to the party, but I think there's a lot that's going to come over the next few years, and very exciting times in the freight industry.
Okay, great. And staying on that topic then, Niranjan, can you speak a little bit about that with regards to cargo line freight logistics and your efforts to expand globally from a base here?
Okay, so like I said, Cargo Line's focus is in luxury fashion. It's such a niche industry that you typically have companies that are very global, that are on 5 continents, typically even entering the offices of the kind of brands that we cater to. The opportunity that existed for us, and I look at these large companies like as whales. I use this analogy all the time when I'm trying to explain to a network partner who asks me how do you even get their business, and when a whale swims by, you see a lot of other fish around, right? There's a whole ecosystem that a whale creates. Maybe it chews a few things, it doesn't, chew a few things, it lets it be. There's a whole ecosystem that it creates because of what it doesn't do, and that's kind of what we pick up on. So for some of the companies that we deal with, we are seen as their team A, like their A team, I don't know, the Delta, Navy SEALs, that kind of a team. All their mission critical, time critical movements come to us. But for anything where there's a factory that produces, let's say, a bag or a shoe, every Tuesday, readiness, every Friday in the store, there are these global companies that are working around the clock. So being agile, being regionally very aware, we know the customs rules really well, and being really, really, really close to the client, like obsessing about the experience. Like a second reminder for some of our team leaders is already a death sentence, because it's probably the fact that we're making them wait. In our company, we have this concept, between 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. is a golden hour for our customers who are typically driving to their offices to want to know what's the update. You might have a dashboard, the C.H. Robinson one that you said sounds fantastic, but if I just want to know where my most critical shipment is, you probably just want a message. And even if there's work in progress, if you tell the client that I am working on this and I should have this to you by 12 noon or 1, and this is kind of the priority for the day, that's when, in the Gen Z language, we are vibing with the client. So it's these small differences, but they're very difficult to recreate. A few passionate people can do, but passion plus education, all of that comes into the picture. So going back, just circling back to the question, Cargo Line has innovated itself by being small. We fully leveraged the benefits of being small and agile, by being regional, by knowing the customs laws really well, and by obsessing over our clients' experience. And that's how we're still an A team for the global companies that are there.
Great. Pablo, back to you then. You spoke about some of the challenges globally right now, such as the Red Sea crisis. Obviously, you're not long past COVID as well. What are some of the strategies you use to mitigate for these challenges that crop up?
Well, actually, I'm going to touch on a couple of points here related to that question. Going back to Mr. Tobias from Roland Berger, there is a big amount of data in our systems. We use Oracle, but the data is all messed up. It's just all messed up. You take an item and it says 20 days time, and it's 80 days. So data is a big issue, and we can't rely on data. We don't have any tools, any specific program that picks on that data that as a basis is already wrong, right? That can help us predict and mitigate the crisis, which is what they are now calling AI, right? All based on logistic regression or whichever statistical method you want to set up, which is going to tell you, hey, you remember 2 years back, you had item DC 888551 that was requested from China and wasn't available because one component took 5 weeks lead time from the Chinese supplier, then to be shipped to the factory, etc., etc. So data has to be fixed. That's one of kind of step 0. Then step 1, if your data is fixed, still you need a tool to analyze that data and to create, let's say, a predictive crisis mitigation, right, related to the supply chain itself, not to nothing external to it, right? That can let's say tell you, okay, these are your challenges in the last 5 years, and then you have to set up the mitigation plans on the other side. But apart from that, if you look at, let's say, the most recent crisis, the Red Sea crisis, the blockage of Suez Canal, I believe for now we still keep a competitive edge in the company by having a team of people that got together and said, okay, next day, what's the impact on cost? And then procurement said, this much. What's the impact on lead time? And I also had information ready. Then warehousing said, our warehouse and logistics said, oh, my warehouse is, actually we have 5 weeks of stock because we were dropped dead in the middle of Chinese New Year, right? Chinese New Year delivery means you have extra stock. And somehow we had a sales crunch, so we keep 2 weeks extra. We had 2 weeks extra, right, to cope with the 14 days extra shipping time. But all of this, let's say, information, all of this sharing between the commercial side, right, the direct contact with the forwarders, saying, okay, this is what's happening in the market, this is what's happening in prices, this is what's happening in lead time. This is why this is happening, because there is a crunch in the Shanghai port, because the lead time is larger, there is less ships available, etc., etc. And on the other side, on the execution side, the operation side, the way they set up the new lead times in the system, this type of committees, this type of quick, agile reaction, and then of course also information to the top. So the president and all of the divisional presidents and the staff CX like C-line members know of the impact. These type of committees have to be existing in the network of the managers of the company. So the company actually doesn't stay like, oh, we have a crisis, what do we do? And there's no response, right? So that's the human factor. On the other hand, going back to step 0, if your data is right, then you can actually fix a crisis quite quickly, because you know what your basic supply chain is. You know where your supply chain is having an issue and where it's not having an issue, right? So you can fix that issue beforehand, or if the issue comes from outside, you know where the supply chain is, so you know how to get back to your original supply chain once the crisis is mitigated. So I believe that the main, let's say, levers that you have to use to face those potential crises, which they will keep coming. Let's face it, we have Malacca Strait between Indonesia and Singapore. Who knows, maybe China decides to block it tomorrow, right? And what happens to all the ships coming from Shanghai? Where do they go? They go through Australia now? That's going to be crazy. So in order to cope with these potential crises, you have to fix your data, then you know your basic supply chain, how it works, 100%, and then you have to create this collaboration, this global collaboration, both with forwarders as well as internally, to ensure that the mitigation actions are taken quickly based on the information on the market on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, great. Now, back to you then. Can you speak a little bit about how freight forwarders can ensure customer satisfaction, and what, like for example, is it technology that's driving that forward, or what is driving that aspect of it?
Sure. I'll answer that. We already touched upon that briefly earlier, but I'll answer that from a network perspective. So I wear the hat of a networker, and I run the freight network where we connect forwarders globally, naturally. And there are about 500 odd freight networks at the moment. What sets a network like X2 apart is the technology that we've invested in, a powerful dashboard which allows our members access to critical information about other members. And this could translate in any space, in any industry. It could be the freight world or logistics, wherever it is. Today, if you want to set yourself apart from competition, then you have to ensure that you're investing in technology, and not just any technology, but technology that empowers your clients, that gives them access to information that can help them make their decisions. So at X2, I can tell you that we have a dashboard that gets access to our members, information about the ratings of other members, payment behaviors of other members, how much business happens amongst the community, and all of this then gives them the right tool to understand who they would like to then work with. And it's the same also in the freight business, right? The clients want to know where their shipment is at any given point of time. They want to know what the rates will be 3 months down. They want to know when the Swiss crisis is going to end. And if we can solve those problems and focus on solving those problems, then you've hit gold.
I want to add to something Pablo said some time back about data, and he said, that's step 0. I think Elaine mentioned when tasks are repetitive, it's easy to generate data. I think the Schenkers of the world have a lot of data on lead time. There's no dearth of it. They know how many days it's taken from one station of theirs to another. But when they go and commoditize and present that data saying, look, your lead time has increased by 11, the first instinct of the logistics manager would be, my rating is going to go down in front of my supply chain manager. How do I take this data, go to, let's say, a competitor and say, what would be your lead time? And I think that fear of how data would perhaps cannibalize their own sales is perhaps the reason some of the forwarders keep their clients in the dark. They say, you go to DHL, I've been a customer earlier, even as a B2C client, more than 3 months back, you don't get your statements. It's not like they don't have the data. But if I want to pull out something in the past, it becomes difficult. So the issue with data is if it is used to hurt your own business, I think nobody would put it out there. That's where being a business partner really kicks in. I mean, I sometimes draft emails in such a way that my logistics manager can present it to not mine, but my client's logistics manager can present it to the CEO or to the board, which explains all the mitigation or the predictive actions we have taken, why we chose a shipping line versus another. And logically, nobody sitting at the top is going to want to pin the blame on somebody for a store not opening on a certain date. And that's a very big deadline in our industry because the press is called in, I don't know, the global CEO flies in and all of that, right? So we predict, but we help them, right? So the one thing I would strongly encourage really large companies to consider is have a global player by your side. They give you access to data to the level that they want to give it, but also have a local person. I mean, if you can pick up the phone to somebody in Egypt and really understand what is the situation there, if there is an alternate routing, can cargo, somebody in Jordan perhaps is able to truck it down to Iraq, and from Iraq, you are able to shift it here. These are alternate routings which the global forwarders, for many reasons, right from compliance down to even their own inflexibility, will not be able to solve for. So have a strategy where you have global players move your predictive cargo and have a team that is able to, have a team of regionally strong forwarders who are able to perhaps move in a more agile way.
And then Anjan, same with you then, what role is technology playing in that development of cargo line?
Okay, I want to point out one technology that exists in partnerships, networking groups such as what Melvin runs. This is the ability to procure pricing. So I could go to, for example, Canada, and I could just check boxes, and let's say there are 10 members there, and let's say I have a history with 2 and I don't want to work with them. I can select 7, or if I don't want to float the inquiry, let's say NOPAC has a requirement from Wisconsin in the US to Australia, I can at the click of a button send the inquiry to 5 different companies, and geographically in the US I can pick someone in Madison who's much closer, who understands the local, let's say a strike or a local disruption there much better than somebody sitting in California, because it's an entirely different world. And likewise I can do this in Australia as well. And chances are that freight pricing also could be quite competitive, because the likes of Maersk's and your CMA, CGMs, these are the large shipping lines, are anyways wanting to be forwarders. They're out there trying to buy out companies, trying to push the Schenkers away. I mean, there was a dispute between Maersk and BB Schenker at the peak of COVID, where Maersk wasn't just giving them containers, and they launched their own application called Twill. So the idea is technology is a massive enabler, not just for forwarders in terms of opportunities, but for the clients to get really low rates while getting really local, accurate information to plan their moves. So we've been the beneficiary of that.
And Melvin, just to take a question related to that then, how can these small and medium-sized companies deal with bigger companies? Like, how do they differentiate themselves from these large corporations that have a lot of, they have a lot of operational capabilities?
Right, it's an interesting question, and I think you're posed it to the right person, also because we are a small, medium-sized forwarder in Dubai, and also as a network enabler. It's just the perfect balance. So naturally, small, medium-sized forwarders have their own challenges. That's something that we all know. But I think there's a lot of opportunities also for small, medium-sized players to go truly local. They understand the nuances of working in their local markets. They know the culture of the city and the country that they're operating in. They know the value systems. They have contacts that some of the multinationals can only dream of. But how can then they compete in the global space? Well, that's exactly where networks like ours come in. We give them an opportunity to be a part of a global space. So when somebody joins a network with 1,500 members, they are automatically becoming a part of a larger ecosystem that's able to tap into a market in Buenos Aires in Argentina, or a remote town in Japan, or somewhere in Australia. And that's what these global networks do. They take the local players and make them global heroes. So in today's world, it's all about consolidating your reach, and small, medium-sized forwarders can do that by being a part of larger networks like ours.
I'd like to open up the floor to any questions now as well. If
Just,
anybody has- yeah, of
Could
course.
I add a couple of things to
Yeah.
the gentleman? Sorry to hijack your Q&A. Yeah, so basically I operate in very diverse markets. For instance, in US, we have around, 18,000 movements a year, LTL, so pallet-wise in the truck. We have quite a, let's say, large century-old business that we want to keep. So we are partnered with FedEx, like forever. So FedEx is our trucking company. We have a rate system, we renew it every 2 years. And they just, it's direct trucking, so we don't go through a third-party broker, etc. In Australia, for instance, on the other hand, we have a detail business. It's a smaller business, a smaller warehouse, but still it's quite a large part of our turnover, around 5-7% of the yearly sales. We tried the road business to allocate it to one company and to kind of do rates, etc. But then we tried something else, which is called, it's kind of an online platform where you can actually pick and choose the prices between TNT, there is Toll, there is even Schenker is there, and other transport companies. Star Trek, which is being bought by Australia Post recently. So that applies better to our business in Australia because it's a bit more agile than the business in the US, less rigid, less volume, more like door-to-door, kind of zip code to zip code. And that, coming back to the global partner, local partner, big company, large company, it all depends on the size of your business, I guess, and the way you distribute. So both models work within our same company just because the countries are different, right? So that's kind of my bit into these global platforms, sharing networks, and working with a Schenker or working with a SME transport company, right?
Yes, and any questions from anybody for any of the points?
Thank you for the panel, and being from logistic or warehouse, it was very insightful what you have mentioned, and specifically on the data. So you mentioned about the importance of the data, the cleanness of the data, the availability of the data, to use it maybe to better manage crisis, finding solutions, historical data, giving you one step ahead. But in an ideal world, does the industry that you're working in predictive solutions based on AI, maybe to see not how I can solve a problem, to predict the problem is coming, let's say the Red Sea crisis, you have political instability in the region, war, predict in advance that we might have issues based on the news, and then be ready in advance, not how I can react with better solutions during the crisis, how can I find the workaround before. And I believe this is maybe the ideal world. Of course, it's not an easy topic, but is the industry investing in these technologies because the supply chain or freight forwarding is impacting the world? It's not something which is to a customer specific. So the crisis of the container we had in China 3 years back also was impacting the entire industry across all the globe, across all the sectors. Having this way of seeing it in advance, is there any technology being developed around, okay, the AI is the technology, but is there any development happening around with the big players? Is it something which is kept aside because it's not really reachable with the current situation? How do you see it from your side? Sorry for the long introduction, I believe it's important.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, from our side, we are like a big Amazon.com of hydraulic tooling. We have tools like as big as this room, and as tools as small as your cell phone, right? So 70,000 products in catalog. What drives our prices is not global events that you obviously can't predict. It's sometimes that I experienced 2 weeks back. There was a request from America for a certain product from Europe, and there was a sales promise given by our president, Sales America, to a customer for a product coming from Europe. And the guys in Europe, they didn't listen because they didn't have the solution ready. They said, okay, we're just going to put it in the plane consolidation Thursday, it's going to leave on Saturday. And they replied 2 times with the same email, meaning they are not ready for a rush shipment. They are not ready not even to pick the phone and call the freight forwarder, which you can see from the window, right, which is right next to us, and say, hey, can you book me on the 2 p.m. Chicago flight tomorrow? No, they don't do it. You know, all of these processes, all of these reactions to make your supply chain really agile, regardless of the cost, because in the end you're going to send the bill to the customer. Okay, you pay $7, $8 per kilo because of the rush shipment, you pay it, but you're going to cash it. Now the customer is going to wait until Thursday the week after. He's going to be upset for a little bit. He's going to have the sales director or manager talk to him. He's going to wait. Okay, hydraulic tool is not medicine or food. He's going to wait a little bit, but he's not happy because he wanted it on Monday. Right? So those are the type of crises we're facing. In another area of logistics less related to transport lead times. For instance, in our main warehouse in Wisconsin, over the past 4 years, we lost $1.5 million of product because we don't know where it is. What happens? The guy comes inbound from wherever, from the supplier, and then puts the part somewhere, the box. The box is not tagged. It's related to a slip that comes with a delivery slip with a pallet, and then the box is lost. So they did a check and they said, we've lost $1.5 million in 4 years just because we don't know where the boxes are. So solution, put a detailed, itemized, bean-based rack. You know, they take the existing 8 racks, divided by 2, put the middle racks, 16 racks, and then you have 84 columns, 5,000 positions. You put the beans, you put a sticker with the barcode, and then you will know where that little part is, and you won't lose this $1 million over 4 years. So these are the crises we're facing right now. It's kind of step 0, kind of cleaning the base, so then in the future, if your base is clean, then you can say, okay, where are the weaknesses of my supply chain? Where am I really failing my customers? Which is who's taking the call, whether your supply chain is good or bad, by buying or not buying your product.
Yeah, I'd like to add to this. I'd like to answer the question which you asked. Is there something where, is there a software or something that tells you how the world's going to be in terms of supply chain and logistics? Now, sometimes it's not how fast you fly, but it's how much time it takes for an inspector to come and see a piece of cargo. That might be the bottleneck. So, which is unpredictable. We don't know. So there are challenges I don't think we can solve for it, but if the industry comes together and let's say some data gets shared, yes, there can be a layer of innovation that probably could help, but it'll be an incremental process.
We have one more question.
My name is Nisrina Kobi. Thank you very much. I think Ryan, it's genius to have put together automation and logistics, players today in the same room, because this is definitely a NextGen. I have a question to all of you, and I'm very happy to be here today to listen to you. But before that, I just want to jump on what Melvin said earlier about the old generation of warehousing and logistics player in the region that came into the 80s and 90s. And what we noticed is they are now in a existential crisis, because they say, I'm making money, enough money, I don't want to change, I don't want to break what I'm doing. But what we are telling them is, if you don't break, if you don't change, you will be swallowed. Because the new companies, probably like X2 and Cargo Line, are coming with new technology, new automation and partnerships, etc., and they are changing the face of logistics in this region. And all these big projects that we have, mega projects, are here to provoke us. And it's not easy to be pioneer, but in our region it's so beautiful to do so. It asks a lot of investment, of course, human investment and money. So my question to you is, today we see a beautiful thing happening, which is also at the same time a struggle. There is a lack of space, like people are looking for space, but what we've seen is they're not looking only for space, they're looking for service, someone who can do that plus. How do you balance today between the challenges of freight forwarding, so with the cargo lines, Red Sea, all the challenges, and on land, warehousing and value-added services. How do you balance your business? Because that's a lot of challenges on both sides. Thank you.
So yeah, just to answer your question, how do you balance? I think it's not so much a question of balance, but also about an inevitable nature of a freight forwarder today to be providing value-added services. It's no longer just about the commoditization of freight. Like you mentioned earlier, it's fairly easy to just pick up the phone and ask for a rate from Shanghai to Dubai. If all freight forwarders were just doing this, then we wouldn't even need people anymore. But the reason that freight forwarders still exist is because every single forwarder in Dubai is providing a certain value add that is different from someone else. And so it's not just about, this is an inevitable part of who we are, to find some differentiation and to offer some value add to our clients. I'll give an example. In my family freight business in Dubai, we're specialists in moving perishables and food logistics. So it's not just about moving the freight and maintaining the temperature of the products through the supply chain. That's still something that's fairly simple and easy to do. But our clients, typically supermarket chains and food distribution companies, want that extra value add. They want to comply with local customs authorities and with municipality approvals. So they want, for example, Arabic labeling on their products. So we have facilities across the US and Europe where our partners receive these pallets, break them down individually, label them in Arabic. There's also a regulation to have production and expiry dates here, which is unlike in the US where they just have best before dates. So we also do those compliance at origin. So if we can go that one step further and offer those value add in markets that are seemingly difficult, then as a forwarder, we've offered a value add which can potentially be a game changer to our clients. And it's not just us. I'm sure all forwarders are doing it at their own level and their own capacity. So, yeah.
Great. Last question really quickly.
Say where we have to send a particular shipment and it was going through Red Sea, and now we know what is happening over there, and then the standard solution will be going via
Some other routing.
routing. But of course, if you think through, you could find solutions, but these solutions are not the standard solution, but little complicated. So what is your advice for the freight forwarders? I think this is where probably small to medium freight forwarders will get an edge.
See, it's know your customer really well. I mean, if you will not, I come up with, okay, not all the customers that we work with, we are the closest with, right? Some are just paying our bills, some are just, asking for a rate and nothing more. But the ones that we are truly working with very closely, that's because they've allowed us, and we've really risen to their liking, let's put it that way. So for freight forwarders, just know your customer well, make a few friends out of some of the freight forwarders, so that when you really have out-of-the-box solutions, you'll at least have somebody hearing it. I've had a very large company turn our services down just because the logistics manager wanted the safety of a very large family-owned business here. The safety was, if their truck fails, and if my CEO asks, why did you choose this company? We'd say they're one of the very well-known prominent ones here, right? Just literally just protecting their own image in front of their bosses became important. And now in the same company, we probably have certain other people, department managers, who are going and saying, no, please work with so-and-so company, in our case it's Cargo Line, and really pushing our services through. So I think ideas go to the grave when you don't have relationships. So know your customers well, let them be your partners, like Pablo suggested. And that's when I think any of the ideas can even be tried. And you're not sure that 100% is going to work, right? You could still have a stoppage somewhere. But to give it a shot, just be close to your client. I think that's what I would say.
Let me just add to that. That was actually one of the questions requested by Ryan that I prepared for. During COVID, we had this issue with the containers worldwide. And let's face it, in global logistics, we are market takers. We take the rate, we negotiate a little bit, we take the lead time, we choose Maersk, APL, who is the best? We don't know really. Forwarders know. So they have to come up with solutions. During COVID for US, there was a solution to get the containers quicker from Shanghai to Los Angeles. There was a path called LCLX, or LCL Express, which was a part of the Los Angeles port that had committed to a certain lead time in unloading the containers, because of course manpower was also an issue during COVID, right? So this LCLX was maybe 10 days faster than the regular LCL or FCL lines from Shanghai into Los Angeles, and it was giving you an edge of saying, okay, I'm not paying for air freight, which is humongous during COVID. I'm not, getting this really slow service and still high rate from the current FCL market. I'm getting something in between that I can offer to my end customer, right? And I can say, okay, if you pay me 10% more on my total bill, you're gonna get the goods 2 weeks before, right? So these options should be ready with a freight forwarder, or saying, oh, I have really something really urgent, 700 kilos, yeah, I know it's a little bit heavy for air freight, but I need a solution quick. So if your freight forwarder, no matter the size, has a good relationship with the handling agent for air freight with Emirates, let's say, or with Etihad, and gets you a rate on the spot, and doesn't take 1 day to get the rate, because I know some forwarders, they have this process, and they wait, and then they consolidate all the cargo, and then they pick the phone for you. No, they have some guy which is on expedited quotes, and then you can get a rate within 3 hours and decide. This is the kind of people you want on your side, whereby there the size doesn't matter, it's rather the service they offer to you, right? Because maybe big, large forwarders, they don't have this service available. They'll tell you, okay, our Amsterdam consolidation runs every Thursday, it's Tuesday, see you on Thursday morning with your pallet, right? So I think that's the answer to your question. Global forwarding is segmenting your service according to your customer, knowing your customer, what can go wrong, and being ready for it.
Okay, I'm going to have to end the panel there. We get a big round of applause.